Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes?
Yep.
Anything?
Move to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
We've got, all right, we already had one. Is there a
Oh,
second?
All right.
Second?
Second.
Motion second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion on amendment to Municipal Code, Chapter 202 for signs, Section 202 for the purpose of garage sale, signage and other temporary signage. Are we doing that tonight?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it on the agenda until we come to, it'll be a working item. I know, obviously, Randy, you wanted to be here.
Yeah, I did, and I, apologize for not making the last meeting, but this, I was brought up to me by a realtor, and it kinda made sense, but I'm not looking to reinvent the ordinance or change any of the principles or the fundamentals of the ordinance. But I think we could probably inject into it some of what I saw in these other ordinances that you have given us, to allow the open house signs to go up. And it's up to, for debate whether it goes in the right of way or not in a limited time, in a limited amount of signs on any given corner related to that one house, open house they're having. Let's stop chasing the signs unless they're in complete violation of it.
Well, and they have money invested in their signs,
They do.
No?
compared to the garage sale person who's just putting up the cardboard sign, stake in the ground, doesn't go back.
Well, and
Whoa. Go ahead.
I think the stake in the ground is one of the big ones that we wanna really address. Because, we do have controls, there's underground utilities, fiber, things like that, internet, phone. That's a concern, especially when you're on the Carmichaels of the world. So I think that would be a logical place to start with the open house ones and say we only allow ones that do not insert into the ground, so the A-frame types. And then,
If you look under that one that you had from the surrounding cities, the real estate sign codes from other cities, that pretty much does it in a nutshell for us. Unless we wanna tweak it.
How are those cities, do they have the same underground infrastructure that we have here?
Most,
generally, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's that time of year again, right? Political signs go in that are staked, right?
Yep.
And I don't know that we've had any real issues with those.
no, and generally those are not in the right of way and at least 10 feet off the pole.
They're on private property.
Again, though, but my point is though that, we haven't had any, I haven't heard of any concerns where they hit anything.
I would, 'cause
But there are shorter things that go in like this. It's not the rebar that gets pounded in other cities.
No, but I know that in my cases, I bring a drill out with me, cause most of the time I'm in the frozen time,
Right,
so I bring a pretty hefty drill out,
yeah.
so they don't go away.
Yeah, and I'm thinking the A-frame's only specific to those ones that are in the right of way. And I think political signs generally are required to be on private property anyways.
Well, somebody after the last meeting, I think it may have been Fred, had suggested, and this is adding a layer, but suggested deposit charging, and that they get their deposit back when the signs come up.
Now, are you
It
talking?
works when everybody knows it.
Yeah. Well, and
Dog license, perfect
And if they
example.
don't, are we gonna have somebody go around and stand on their toes then at their garage sale and say, pay up, you didn't pay for your signs?
good point. But the other thing is that the moment they start seeing or hearing that we're allowing even A-frames, then everybody thinks that their signs are good too.
Well, in particular, I was bringing this up mainly focused just on the real estate. I wasn't even talking about garage sale signs. This
Well,
was,
then you got other, and believe me, I'm with you on this.
yeah,
Okay, I think that we need to relax this a little bit.
Could we make
Right,
the
you've
distinction
got-
of a professional sign designating a work-related realtor, a builder, as opposed to a individual's garage sale? Could we make that kind of a distinction within the layer? I mean,
You know,
is
I
that
had,
allowed, is that?
Just as another example, and this is what, the first time I had any exposure to the sign ordinance at all. was, a friend of mine owned Domino's Pizza, and he would have his, Customer Appreciation Day, Father's Day every year. And he'd go out throughout the city and put his signs up, and they'd be up for 2 days, 3 days. I think he put them up Friday night and take them down Sunday, and he was really good about getting them all down, what was left, what Denny left behind. But Denny or somebody went out and just would yank them up. He was able to do it for a few years, and then all of a sudden, they started getting yanked up. And so he was complaining about that. That, like I say, that was my first exposure to any issue with signs, and he did a good job. And it's the kind of thing, it supported a business here, and I would like to continue to be able to support a business like that. Once a year, he always puts some signs up advertising his business, and,
Well, that's why I draw the distinction between a professional sign,
yeah.
as opposed to a professionally made, but a professional sign, being a separate category.
Pat's going back in the sign business now.
No.
The artwork.
Yeah,
That's a joke.
I got that. But I agree with those kind of things. You know, the same comes up with the home builders, with the spring preview, the fall parade of homes,
Right.
the luxury home tour. There's builders here in town that are part of that. They contribute. And again, they've got money invested in their signs, so they're usually out there picking them up when they're done and taking them away.
Yeah, I think it's a timing thing too, but that extra layer, say, you know, that 24-hour period, say 36, 48, whatever it may be, it's still fairly cumbersome for staff to regulate or enforce that, right? Because you have to have somebody that's going out, monitoring who put out what, when.
Well, let's be realistic, common sense wise, we have it in place. If it's abused beyond what is in place, then we address the issue. If we have to take it away, then we take it away.
Yep.
I don't expect you or public services or the police department to go chasing after yard signs. That's not what we need them for. But let's have a little common sense and let's advertise. Let the taxpayer, businesses that are in our community have a little give. Let's, you know.
And I think there's, you bring up a good point, and I think a lot of it comes back to that the city itself probably hasn't done the greatest job having that outreach to the community, you know, having it be, you know, like a campaign, so to speak, to say, okay, if you're gonna do this, here's the criteria, you know, work with the chamber, you know, work with other organizations, the local realtors, to say, okay, just to get everybody on the same page. Maybe it's an open house, maybe it's something like that, but we've got to do a good job. Because I think sometimes the argument is that there's inequitable in our enforcement, or, you know, I had it up for 3 hours and, you know, this one over here was up for 5 days. And I think if we were, like you said, it's common sense, but then we have to also educate. And I think that would be an opportunity for us as a city to reach out to those local groups. I invited M&I Homes and as well as Creative. They had interest in this discussion, and obviously I kept it as a discussion only because Mary Claire wanted to be a part of it too. But they plan on coming to the next meeting and kind of making their case in terms of how they feel about it. And then the other thing that they have is they have experience in other communities. You know, I think Lake Elmo has actually done a really good job with some of their, and they've had incredible growth residentially, but they've done a pretty good job keeping their right-of-ways and cross-sections pretty clear of clutter. So there are good best practices out there, but I think, again, it goes back to education and then common sense. But, yeah, I think just some clearing up some of the language and code would be useful. And I did like Fred's idea in terms of maybe we do have for yards sales, for garage sales specifically. If you're going to have that, you know, we have signs available for you that you can stick yours onto and then return after the fact. Because then, you know, then it's easy to enforce. Well, that's just written on cardboard and stuck to a light pole. You know, if we had ones that if they came in, it doesn't even need to be an administratively burdensome thing.
In the summertime, that could be labor intensive though.
Could be.
Yeah.
Take a photo with your phone and put it on the city webpage and shame them.
Do we have any limits on how far they can go in the ground?
No.
Have we ever had a problem, speaking with Public Works, about somebody digging into something or hitting something?
There was one instance I know last summer. I mean, my experience is somewhat limited, right? Because I've only been here 8-9 months now. But there was one last year that somebody was putting a sign up on Carmichael, you know, in a spot where it was apparent that you probably shouldn't be sticking something into the ground. But people don't know, you know, and again, it's an education thing. So other than that, I'm not aware of anybody hitting some, you know,
Gas line or
no.
I think if somebody out there with a hammer and a stake or something,
Or a
driving
drill.
it in the ground, they could go in.
I'm just saying.
Politician.
Well, I'll bring him in, and then I'll, you know, based on this discussion, we'll tweak this a little bit. We'll bring in the developers, you know, and then we'll keep this discussion going, because it warrants a lot of discussion. This is one of those ones where it's not as simple as just a language change. It's-
You know, but it is, you know, it's a common sense approach to something, not fundamentally changing the basis of this ordinance. I was here when it was put in place. I know why it was put in place. It just shouldn't, we shouldn't make it any harder than it is, even if we have to separate real estate to garage sale, yard sale signs. It just, let's not, you know, mix up, make it more than we have to. Opinions are fine, you know. But we're gonna never get it to way everybody likes it.
Yeah.
So that's why we make the decisions supposedly, you know?
So, we hold off on this, or we gonna, is there,
It wasn't for action. It was, like I said, Mary Claire wanted to be a part of this discussion too, so.
okay, anything more?
No, but you will kind of
Yep.
bring a new kind of ordinance section into ours then with the next meeting?
Yep, we'll actually have some draft language we'll put into our code.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, application for a certificate of compliance, 2801 Harvey Street, C1 Athletics CrossFit, St. Croix.
Is the applicant in attendance? Yes. Okay, you wanna go up and introduce yourself and your address and what it is that you're looking at doing?
My name is Lucas Woodland, owner of C1 Athletics and CrossFit St. Croix. We're moving into the new location, 2801 Harvey Street, and looking to operate a CrossFit gym and rec center and provide some other additional services related to fitness and wellness.
So our zoning code really does not have any language specific to CrossFit or this type of mixed, it's almost like a mixed use building, or it would be, because you'd have the yoga, the dance, or not dance, the exercise, the CrossFit, the nutrition piece,
Yep.
potentially, you know. So the way that zoning code prescribes how to handle these things would be to basically the certificate of compliance, like we dealt with on the group that was here at the last meeting. We have similar businesses out there in the business park currently, you know, the Hudson Gymnastics is out there, you know, kind of in the same vein. We've got a very strong mix of businesses out there, you know, daycares all the way to, you know, logistics companies. But this is the process that we go through, just to kind of look at, you know, what does the building look like? What is the space that they, you know, want to occupy, especially if they aren't doing, you know, big things internally, or that would basically necessitate us going through a whole development plan process. This is pretty much just the building's vacant. And they're just moving in their equipment and maybe partitioning off some areas for, you know, whatever specific space is for. So, the only thing that staff, you know, might have a little bit of questions on would be specific to the parking spaces. In the event that, you know, this is successful, and we, you know, I would hope that your business is successful. But how would you accommodate that additional parking if the demand is there for it?
Right. Yeah, the way the current parking lot's set up, right now there's 22 spaces available. And our classes are capped out at 14 people. It was a warehouse, so there's a lot of extra space with overhead doors that are used for like trucks coming in and out. So there's a lot of extra space that we could add additional parking spots if necessary.
Staff recommends approval with the conditions that after a year, if there's issues on the parking side, that we would review it at that time.
Move to approve. with your stipulations and conditions.
Okay, I got a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thank you. Discussion, possible action on final development plans for Tumble Fresh, 23 something, Badger Drive, Lynn Investment Properties LLC.
So their initial concept development plans were pretty thorough, so they really didn't have to do a whole lot. Since that time, there were some comments from engineering that were addressed. There is one additional item that we discussed today in terms of site lighting. Height of the poles has a maximum of the height of the building, and I think we had a 3-foot difference that we had to make up either in building height or base of the pole.
Yeah, they're working on that. They'll comply.
Yeah, you want to step up, please? Again, identify yourself with address.
Hi, I'm Steve Lynn. I'm the president of Lynn Companies. And, yeah, our architects, I know, are working with you on that. And will be, they were first made aware of that today, so it's a pretty simple fix. They'll comply with that.
Yep. Other than that, pretty straightforward. Again, minor things that might have to be addressed prior to the council approval, which would be February 12th. So.
Just a couple of comments. I was not here, and I apologize for the last meeting when this was brought up. I question, I'm all for your business, but I question where this would fit into that area up there, since it is somewhat of a prime real estate for business development. And I'm just questioning having a laundry mat, whether you call it that or not, in that location.
It's a permitted use in that zoning district.
Yeah. But regardless, that's just my opinion, and at this point, I don't know if I would support this moving forward, just because we don't have a lot of land left in Hudson, and I don't think a laundromat and some of our prime real estate is the best use of that land, my opinion.
Well, if I could address that a little bit.
Certainly.
I understand the stereotypical laundromat perception. Really what we're proposing here today is far and away above anything you would think of as a laundromat. Our laundromats are very large. They're very high tech. It's it's a significant service to the community. It's for instance, there is a laundromat. I'm sure you're probably aware. It's near Fleet Farm up there, and that would be more stereotypical of what a laundromat is. Ours are light years ahead of that. Everything's very automated, very high tech. We have huge capacity machines that can do large area rugs, multiple comforters at a time. You could put 5 sleeping bags in it. You can put 15 laundry baskets in one machine. That's a service that currently the town doesn't have that option for. And it's very important for us to be in a high-profile location. We're talking about a facility that will have $1 million in equipment in it. $1 million. We can't put that in where you would have a stereotypical type laundromat. We look for high volume. We look for serving all areas of the community. We want to service the people with very expensive boats down at the marina who are living on their boats or staying on their boats for long periods of time. I'm just saying, that, you know, it's a stereotypical laundromat would service primarily low-income people. And really our target audience is suburban people.
You know, Randy, I looked at this coming into that last meeting. I thought, wow, I don't know if this makes sense or not. And I don't know if you had the benefit of watching the presentation from the last meeting.
I did not know.
This is not the stereotypical laundromat, and in fact, I mean, the facade, this is upscale, and after hearing the presentation and having the benefit of being able to ask, and a number of the committee members here asked a lot of questions, this does serve, I believe I truly believe, after that conversation, there is a need in this community for this type of service that they provide. And I had also mentioned it was one of the most intriguing things that I've seen here that's come before us. Everything's pretty typical, you know, whether it's housing or other businesses. This was just so out of the ordinary. I took a little bit more interest in digging into this one. And I tell you, I'm impressed. I think it fits, frankly, and I think that there is a need here, and I think that after conversations that I've had since that meeting with a number of people, and I have asked people, in fact, I was at Rotary, and it came up, and people said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, do we know what the water capacity they're gonna use up there?
Kip's reviewed.
You know, I'll let my marketing guy talk about that a little bit more. He knows a little bit more about it than I do. I'm the developer.
I'm assuming it's probably less than normal because of the high end, as you were suggesting.
Handheld.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
My name is Jake Jansen. I'm the sales and marketing manager for the Link companies, and I've actually experienced firsthand probably just a lot more than Steve has, just going in and talking with our customers and getting involved with the community and whatnot. And I could elaborate on this, and I could probably keep you here for 2 hours on what kind of services we provide to the community and whatnot. And White Bear, especially our newest location, I mean, we definitely serve to people that are in apartments that have rundown dryers and washers and whatnot, but we serve to a whole other variety. I mean, when we go to events and whatnot, people that try to wash their comforters in their house and whatnot, and you try to just wash one comforter in your house, and you notice that only half of it got washed because how you're having to stuff that in there. I mean, we have our 135-pound washer that can fit 5 king-size comforters in one wash and get it perfectly clean. And some people that I've kind of reached out to is, I've actually experienced this myself, is coming back from the cabin and you wash all the bedding and whatnot. And I have found so many people that own cabins and whatnot where you can have all your bedding and everything washed right away instead of spending a whole day at your house trying to wash all this kind of stuff. And it just saves time and whatnot. And even if for families that have 4 to 5 people in your family, they've actually, even with a working washer and dryer, they decide, hey, I'm going to go over to Tumble Fresh Coin Laundry and use their high-capacity washer and dryers and cut their laundry day in half and whatnot. And it's also convenient. I know Hudson here hosts a lot of big soccer tournaments and whatnot as well. You don't want people coming into the city and they either have to have one person drive all the way back with their soccer uniforms that are muddy and dirty and gross and they're wet after, if it's a rainy game or whatever. Send them over to Tumble Fresh Coin Laundry, and I guarantee we'll be marketing this to the Hudson facility where they play soccer and say, hey, go over to Tumble Fresh Coin Laundry, and it's going to give them somewhere that's comfortable and convenient, and they're going to enjoy washing their uniforms, all that kind of stuff there, and it's somewhere in your city it's going to definitely stick out, and it's going to bring I think it's going to bring more to the city of Hudson than there already is. So.
Did Kip you said he didn't have a concern, but what was the water capacity usage?
I
What's
had
it
to
taking up?
verify with Kip, but Kip had no issue with it. He's reviewed it.
I'd like to know the capacity.
Didn't that come up at the,
Yes, it did.
and,
We approved on it.
pardon me?
We approved on that. It was not a big deal to.
Yeah, well, we'll have all the cut sheets will all be provided to the city and all that as far as the, in the permits and everything. But all of the equipment is the most efficient equipment that's built in, that being said, I mean, it is a laundromat, so yes, it does use a fair amount of water, and we have to submit to to get a SAC permit and those kind of things. And
What about the chemical usage at I know that when we had a laundromat downtown, I think it was in the old, you know where it is, Pat, the old, where the art center is now, there was a lot of abatement of chemical uses that was in that.
They were a dry cleaner.
So
They had a dry cleaner.
nothing like that, no harsh chemicals, nothing like that.
No, this isn't, there isn't any dry cleaning.
so
at this.
we provide no chemicals.
Store bought brought in.
Right, so a person brings in their own bottle of Tide or whatever they would use to wash their
Okay.
own stuff. We do, there will be vending available where they can buy soap as well, but
Sure.
we don't provide any of it.
Okay.
And there's no dry cleaning.
We do not do dry cleaning, no. So we're not using any chemicals and nor are we disposing of anything. Everything is store-bought, so whatever you would put in your washer and dryer at home, this is similar use.
Well, I won't hold it up in this committee, because if I vote no, it doesn't go anywhere due to quorum.
Simple majority, yeah, so it would be, as far as the plan commissions,
I won't
What
hold
we're
it,
charged with
I
is-
won't hold it up, but I will discuss more at council with it. And I will do my research on it and then watch the January 9th meeting as well.
I would also really invite you.
Is this not a quorum?
To go to one of our other
If I voted no.
locations.
Do we have to have 4 votes come on here?
No. You wouldn't remove from the quorum, it would just be,
Is it just
Well,
3 to 1.
either way,
3 to 1, yeah.
yeah, we could do that.
Either way.
And again, though, from the plan commissions, what the plan commission's charge is, okay, is it a permitted, it's a use discussion, right? And a coin-operated laundry facility is a principal permitted use in the B2 district.
But we are a plan commission, and what is the site or future direction that we are looking towards the future of in the less land we have to develop?
I think then that's a question in terms of code, looking at our permitted use and accessory uses
Sure.
in each during. We have a full 6 pages or so, a matrix basically, so, obviously that matrix doesn't talk about CrossFit because we had to do certificate of compliance, but coin-operated laundry facilities are. And in a B2 district, it has a P, which means permitted use in that district. So it'd be a good idea potentially, if that's what the commission wants to do, is to review those use charts for each zoning district and say, okay, is this something that we want or think is a good idea in whatever zoning district it is that we're thinking about.
Yeah, it'd have to be way forward in the planning in order to, I think, pull that off. Otherwise, we're gonna have what we have now continue. You've got Panda Express and you've got Leanne Chin. We didn't choose which one came or where they went. That it fit the zoning to the way the project had been laid out. It's a geography of nowhere. There's no, to the whole area, you can't tell if you're in Woodbury or in Kansas City or in St. Louis. That's the type of architecture that goes with fast food and those kinds of businesses. And
Boy, I tell you, we got one of the busiest exits off an interstate and the busiest McDonald's ever, and throwing a laundromat or whatever you want to call it,
But
right in the
that's-
middle of it. just seems odd to me.
And.
But that's their right. I don't.
But it's also our right as a plan
Yeah.
commission, is that something we want on expensive land that we have very little of right now? And that's just my opinion, Pat.
I agree with, in concept, I agree with you, but I think that part of that conversation in terms of land use and planning had to take place with Dave Robson and those guys when they came before the
Sure.
planning commission in the city to want to develop it.
And I would agree with you.
Yeah, but to try and suggest now that we choose one business over another, I don't think that's our choice any longer.
But that's what we do.
We,
That's what the decisions that this and the council make, we choose one business over the other. We always have. That's the way it works. If somebody's talking to your ear about not wanting that and this and that, and you have a constituency to adhere to, you're gonna listen to them. Well, typically, that's what you should do.
yeah,
Does it fit into that plan of our future development on, like I say, land that we don't have? Maybe I'm picking a different argument, and this just happens to be caught up in my discussion.
I understand what you're saying
You're
completely.
bringing up a good point, and
Yeah, it's a very valid point.
and it harkens back to, I'll be bringing forward a proposal to council, probably even ahead of when we redo the comp plan, which we have to do next year. Our zoning code hasn't really changed too much in 30-some years. It's time to take a look at a wholesale zoning code update. There are some things in here that are great in the zoning code that are fantastic and really creative, and you can see where they've gone back in time. Certain projects have come up and they've made code changes to either accommodate or to not accommodate something. But from a staff's perspective, this is what we have. This is the law. This is the ordinance. It's a principal permitted use. They master plan, it's a condo, they condo the whole plat, so it's a unique situation out there. You buy the building pad, and then you purchase rights to develop the parking and everything out there. So AutoZone did it, the Starbucks building, or not Starbucks, Be Caribou there, and, you know. But I think to have this conversation, and again, you're validating a lot of the concerns I've had, not with this particular project, but in the fact that our zoning code just doesn't do a good job of comprehending things, because our city's grown so much, you know, and it shows in the CrossFit example. It shows in other places day to day that I deal with, where our code just doesn't do a good job, or it's kind of a mishmash of, you know, we put this in and we took this out, and it is time. And it's a significant undertaking to do a complete zoning code update.
So you're just not busy enough?
Oh, I'm busy enough.
But
So-
here's where I come down on this right now. I mean, it's an interesting discussion, and one I think that's very appropriate. So I mean, we need to be taking care of the residents of our city. And this comes down, for me, to, is there a need? And after listening to the presentation last week, because I thought there is probably no need for this, and before the presentation, and after listening to the presentation and subsequent to that meeting, after talking in town to people who either tuned in to what was happening at the meeting or just heard about it and had questions about it, there seems to be a need here. Now, there probably was no need for Panda Express. There probably was no need for Five Guys. Probably no need for Leanne Chin. I doubt that there was a need for AutoZone. But I really think here, we do have a need. And this is for the residents of our city.
Yeah,
I think I think we're in an area that I think is a council thing more so, but as far as the plan commission, our purview is here's what our code is. It's permitted, that's gonna be, you know, staff's recommendation.
It is our code, but we are a planning commission,
Yeah, yeah.
planning.
But we have limitations in terms of
you're talking, reactive, proactive.
Right.
Plan commission, yes, when we do the comp plan update, that legally we have to do every 10 years, we need to be having these discussions. We need to take them seriously.
And what do we want the Carmichael and UU corridor to look like?
That's a whole different ballgame.
That kind of stuff, we can start, if you will, directing, for lack of a better word, how we want that to look in advance without changing the rules out from under somebody who's all the way this far down.
Yeah.
The line.
It's not giving me heartburn, but I'm just,
I understand your concern.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
I'm happy that we're having this
Yeah.
discussion, actually, because it is a certainty that I would be in front of council in the very near future with a zoning code update along with the comp plan update.
Well, like I said, I will not oppose it coming out of plan commission, but I will probably at the next meeting.
Okay. All right, anything else? Everybody good?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
I'll second it.
Second, motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thanks, guys. Discussion of possible action on recommending the common council set a public hearing date for amending municipal code, chapter 255 zoning, section 255-85, and section 255-89 to remove security deposit language.
A couple meetings ago, we had the discussion about going away from the deposit form and going to, we had the fee analysis done by SEH, taking away having the deposit process where we draw on deposits, and it's an incredibly administratively burdensome process. This code language basically cleans up our code, so it says, it eliminates the deposit language and just goes to the straight administrative fee. That was supported by that fee analysis that we had
And
done.
that was part of that analysis that you presented before.
Yep. Yep.
Anybody?
I'll move we approve that
I'll second it.
action.
Got a motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. I've got nothing. Mike, anything?
We'll be starting that comp plan process soon.
Okay.
It has to legally start in later this year and early 2019. And we've set money aside the past two or 3 years. I think there's $75,000 that the city's budgeted for, allocated towards that project.
I can see that, I can see the need for that, period,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, completely.
And its due diligence is taking a good hard look at what we allow. There's form-based zoning where basically I don't care what's going on in the building as long as it looks really, really cool. There's standard Euclidean zoning, which is what we have, where you just have, here's all the uses that are allowed in each zoning district, here's all the conditional uses. I kind of like a hybrid approach. No matter what you do, zoning code's never gonna give you all the answers, and you're gonna have issues that come up. You're like, well, that, we never thought of that. But it is certainly time, it's past time that the city, from my perspective, from staff level, took a look at its zoning code and made the appropriate updates and went through a very comprehensive plan process.
Mike, I have one question about the Carmichael study that was done. It was supposed to include 11th Street Higgin Bridge. Did they do that?
All accounts, yeah, absolutely. In
That
terms
was-
of redesign,
Or widening the lanes and taking out the slip lane on Crestview and Higgin.
taking it out,
Making it a four-way stop and widening that bridge was supposed to be part of that comp plan unless somebody misunderstood.
I think that it was.
Not comp plan, but the Carmichael study.
Study. Yeah.
Okay, no, I think it was the counts, what the trip generation is, what we could direct in alternative routes, but in terms of physical improvements to the bridge itself.
Physical.
That's, yeah.
Denny was
That
gonna have a
supposed-
conversation, he had a conversation with the DOT, and it was supposed to go to the Carmichael Road study included in that, maybe
I'll talk to Glenn.
I think that got lost.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to make sure we stay on something up there, because it's
That's-
getting worse.
It's
That's a
awful.
good point. Yep.
It's awful.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll
Okay.
talk to Glenn.
Emily, you got anything? No? Anybody else? Motion?
Move to adjourn?
Got a motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.